Welcome, everybody, to the Best of the Best podcast presented by the Brinks Armored Account. I am your host, Maverick Levy. Today, I'm joined by two phenomenal guests. As always, I'll let them kind of introduce themselves. We're going to be talking credit, a lot of things in life that relate to credit, and all the fun stuff in between. So without further ado, we'll start with you, Josh, kind of give you the floor, introduce yourself, and then we'll let your brother do the same.
Yeah, I appreciate you having us on. And, as you mentioned, so my name is Josh, my brother Chris. Together we are the Credit Brothers. And we basically teach people about credit through social media, so you can find us on all the platforms. And, ultimately what our goal is to help people understand this mystical 3-digit number and how to not only improve it and create a score and all that good stuff, but also how to use it and how to really elevate multiple parts of your lifestyle by using credit as something that helps you rather than hurts you. So
Yeah, and I think obviously we went out to dinner last night. We talked about life in general, and I kind of heard your guys' story. But for the audience, because on the long form, on the non-educational series, I don't really do an intro. It's kind of just like go with the flow, open discussion. You guys know I didn't prep you with anything. So I'll give you guys the floor to kind of talk about how you got into this, what you currently do. You can even go deep dive into the business offerings that you guys have and exactly what you do, just so everyone can get an understanding of what you guys actually do for a living to then continue the conversation from there.
Right. And I think, with credit, right, it's a very wide topic, right? So as far as what we're doing now, like I said, is we're helping people understand it, but also use it. And we have a few ways that we do that, whether it's working with people one-on-one or offering material that people can go through independently and kind of self-teach themselves. But it really all starts as far as like, for example, why we're even doing what we're doing now is kind of the unique style in which we were brought up, because, our mom's a public school teacher, and our father is an entrepreneur. So we kind of got both of these sides of the coin when we were growing up of, okay, what it's like to kind of be just regular W-2 employee, right? As well as, okay, well, what's it like as a business owner? And kind of through that, we were able to see how credit is kind of used in both cases, right? As an individual and as a business owner. And what's kind of unique to us is that we both are very curious people. And our father is somebody who was very open about anything we wanted to talk about when we were growing up. So when I was like 10 years old, I'm asking my dad about like Roth IRAs and a tax deduction versus a tax credit and, what is credit and like what's a credit score. So like I'm being taught all of these things at like a super young age just because I was curious, and right. He was open to having that discussion. And with my brother being the older brother, right, throughout our lives, like growing up, if he was into something, I got into something. When he started watching WWE and John Cena and, Edge and all those superstars and playing the video games, the next thing you know, I'm super into it, right? Or he starts baking, sweets and like chocolate covered pretzels and like, now I want to do that, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of this like younger brother, little brother thing, or younger brother, older brother.
Older brother, yeah.
So, fast forward as we got a bit older, I went and did my own thing in college. I studied electrical engineering. He took a different route. He worked for our father as a project manager, and, we were separate for a little while. And then eventually we came back together when I graduated and I got a job near Boston. He wanted to move back, and we ended up living with our childhood best friend at the time, because he also had a job near Boston. So like here we are, early 20s, like we're all living together. This was kind of like that childhood dream of like, oh, it'd be awesome if we all lived together.
Yeah, you're out on your own now.
Yeah. So when I was living with him, he had picked up some like friends, and you could probably explain it better than I can, but you were out in Vegas for a while, and during that time you met some people that were like doing cool things with credit that you would never really seen before, right?
Yeah, I think that was like the earliest stages. I remember taking this credit course online, and they were talking about crazy things that you could do, like way past what my imagination was like, oh, you need credit to buy the house or the car, or you should have a good credit score. But these guys were like getting hotels for free and getting like the Ferris wheel at the link, like part of like a hotel status. And I'm like, how are you doing that? And they always were like, oh, I got this credit card and I got this reward and I did this like status thing. And that got me curious because when I was living in Vegas, uh, I wasn't making really any money at all. And so I wanted to still be able to go do cool things with my friends, but I also wanted to save as much money as possible. So through this credit cards and the things you could do with them, I started to be able to stay at these hotels or go to these dinners or go on a Ferris wheel or go to shows for completely free, even though other people were paying $50, $100, or hundreds of dollars to get those exact same things. So that started to drive that curiosity, got me just, again, learning, questioning, researching, YouTubing, opening my first credit card, and then just, practicing. And I remember it was like right around like 2020 for New Year's, we were doing like a reunion in Vegas, and my friend and his girlfriend were flying out, and one of my other friends and his brother were flying out, and I was like, cool, I know how to get these like to stay at the Bellagio or Caesar's Palace for much cheaper than other people. And so I was like, hey, hey bro, like open this credit card, do this thing. I told my other friend to do the same thing, and it was like they were able to show up, get that room upgrade, like be able to be taken care of. And they're like, dude, this is crazy. Like, dude, you got to like teach people about this, which kind of like started this, kind of rolling effect of, no, this is dumb. Like, nobody cares about this. Like, I know about it. I think it's cool, but like, no one else cares about it. And here we are today. And it's like, we have a lot of other people that think it's cool and care about it.
Yeah, yeah. So how did that transform into a business?
I mean, completely by accident.
Yeah.
Because he had came back from this trip, and it was, just the early stages of the pandemic happened right around that time. And, I was working my job. I was working for a government contractor, like had my engineering position, but I just wasn't super thrilled with it, to be honest. Like, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And, here he comes with all these like tricks and things that he's doing with credit cards, which at the time, right, we grew up with a foundation of knowledge, but not necessarily the application of that, because our dad was, not a travel hacker. He was just using it very simply as far as how he used credit. And next thing I know, I see my brother, who I'm living with, doing all these crazy things. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, tell me about it.
Yeah.
And you freaking didn't for like a little while. He just like kept it. He was like, don't worry about it. Like, blah, blah, blah.
I was like, dude, you don't need to know about it, dude. Like, I'll handle it.
Yeah, yeah.
He just kept doing that.
Keeper over here.
And then eventually I got it out of him. And then, I started to learn it and pick it up. And, I just got super interested about it. And, he was having some conversations with friends. And, actually the story goes is that one of his friends had a TikTok and he was doing street comedy. And he was talking with him, Ray. And Ray was like, hey, Chris, like, you got to get on social media. Like, you're talking about all these things, like, people need to know about it. And, eventually we started, posting on social media, just kind of.
What was the first platform you guys posted on? Was it Instagram?
It was actually one of our friends, well, really close friends that we actually live with now. He's a little bit older than us, and he was a huge inspiration for us to ever get started and have consistency, because at the time we looked up to him as like someone that had, life knowledge and advice and, motivation for us. And he recognized that we wanted to start posting, but we were just again, we are nervous and care about all these things and no followers and don't know the name and don't know what to post and all the things that every single normal person goes through at the beginning and even further on in their stages. And he basically put it behind like a wall. He was like, hey, if you want to talk to me, you have to post for 7 days in a row, and I expect you to start today. And so he made it like, hey, if you do this, then you'll get rewarded by being able to talk to me. And then it was like 7 days we got to talk to him. Then he's like, cool, I want you to do this for 30 days and I'll be able to talk to you again. And then it was 60 days. And he's like, okay, cool. 60 days, 61, 62 days is statistically when habits are formed. But that got us into, it didn't matter what time of the day it was. It didn't matter how many followers we had on Instagram. I mean, it was, we're going to post every single day, no matter what. regardless. Otherwise, we lose this benefit of being able to talk to someone at the time that we were, that we looked up to want to talk to.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just always hearing the stories of what was like the push to get started. Everyone's is always so different, obviously. But with your guys's, did you understand the value of the information that I guess you had at the time? Like, did you understand how truly valuable it was?
Well, so this was the funny part, is that same guy, and his name's Jake. So Jake was trying to convey to us, similar to your question of, hey, you guys have valuable things to say. And we were making all these excuses, and he goes, all right, watch this. He takes a photo of his blinds in his room. Just a random, like, not clear, like, crooked photo of his blinds. He posts it on his account, and it gets like 3 likes and 2 comments. He sends us the post, and he goes, hey, just so you guys know, a photo of my blinds has more engagement and more people that have seen it than like your information about how to build credit. And it's like that moment, for at least for me, really helped me understand the gravity of, it is way more valuable what I have in my head than like this arbitrary photo of blinds. But because I'm not putting it out there, nobody can see it and nobody can understand it. So eventually, once that happened, we were like, okay, let's actually start posting. And at the time, like, Instagram didn't have Reels.
Yeah.
So there was no videos. We didn't do videos for months, believe it or not. Like, we were posting to like nobody. Like, after 2 months straight of posting, we had like less than 100 followers. A lot of pretty much all friends. Like, our mom would comment on like all of our stuff, and we were just trying to get into the habit of actually putting out what's in our head in front of people.
What was the first viral post that you guys had?
So that's where TikTok came into play, because he had this conversation with his friend. He goes, hey, you guys should start doing videos. We're like, oh, I don't know. And then it was actually Chris. You made the first video, then I did the second, and we just kind of like passed back and forth. And it was funny because it was our 4th video ever. I had made this piece of content on basically why you don't pay collections, which is controversial, because people are like, oh, well, it's debt, and like, I'm supposed to pay it. Like, why wouldn't I pay it? And I kind of broke down some reasons why you wouldn't. And this was before I even knew what going viral was. So I had a day trip to Boston, because it was like the summertime, pandemic was happening, but it was like the first day that Boston was open as a city. Like, you could go out to a restaurant. It was like awesome. So I'm out there with my friends, and like, I'm getting text messages from Chris going like, yo, have you checked the TikTok account today? And I'm like, oh, no, I haven't checked it yet. I open it up, and I'm like, oh my God, that video I just posted has like, 50,000 views. Like, that's crazy. And then like 10 minutes later, I check it again. I'm like, holy crap, it's at 100,000. And it was just this like snowball of like acceleration of how much views it was getting. And at the time, we had never even posted something that cracked 1,000. So to see like 50, 100,000 was nuts. And then,
wow. So, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think it's important for people to hear. So you didn't see like a growth. It was like 1,000 views, and then boom, one just took off.
Yeah. Like, it
wasn't even 1,000. It was like 10. It was that. It sounds so cliche of like, you listen to like Gary Vee, and he's like, oh, just post every day. Like, don't care about what other people. We're normal people. Like, you for sure judge every single thing you put out. You think, oh man, I worked so hard to do this post, and man, I got 4 likes, and you get to feed it, and you're like, this isn't worth it. Like, all of those same thoughts is what we went through every single day. But we're just doing it because we're just practicing. We always go, okay, well, we're practicing. Like, that's another thing. Oh, I learned how to make this edit on the post, or like, oh, this caption. But as far as the videos, I mean, it was like 70 views. It was probably less than 1,000 across the board. So again, when it started hitting like just sharing and follows, we were like, what do we do? Like, this is a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah. So at the end of that week, it had over 3 million views. And to answer your original question of, well, how did this become a business?
Yeah.
It came down to the fact that the specific video that I posted was about collection accounts, which is something that people that have poor credit have, because collections drop your score. So we had made this video, went viral. And then because we had been posting for months on our Instagram, people were then following us on TikTok, searching for us on Instagram, and then also following us there.
Wow.
And on Instagram, you can message people. So people were following us on Instagram. We went from like less than 100 followers to like a couple thousand almost overnight. And then simultaneously, we woke up to just all of these messages from people saying, hey, I've got collections, like, can you help me out? Or I've got this on my report, or I've got this. And it's kind of one of those situations where we didn't understand the concept at the time, but we put out something to the marketplace. And the marketplace responded by saying, hey, I'm willing to pay you for this if you can help me with it. And we formed at the time what we had for a business simply because that's what people wanted. Like, they were like, hey, I need help with this specific thing. Can you help me? And we go, well, I guess we can. Like, let's start to figure it out. And then before we knew it, like, signing clients and like taking in money, and we're like, wow, like, this is totally not what we thought was going to happen.
That's crazy. That's a crazy story. But I guess that's kind of like what you hear is the, internet sensation, overnight, going viral, the thing that everybody wants. But I think it's very cool to hear you guys say, like, you were not expecting that per se. It just, you were out at lunch in Boston and your brother called you, like, check the video, and there you go. And one thing led to another. Did you guys have any intention on this being a business before that point in time? Like, was this like, okay, we're kind of like shooting content, figuring it out, or was it, okay, like, we're just doing this out of passion more so?
So it's a good word to use, passion, right? Because at the time I had a full-time job. I was getting paid well. He had a full-time job. He wasn't getting paid well. He wanted to shift careers. I was kind of interested in exploring other options, but I didn't initially look at what we were doing as anything more than just, honestly, a passion project with my brother. I was like, hey, we're living together. It's the pandemic, so I'm not hanging out with people. Like, there's this thing that I'm, interested in, and, we're working together, figuring stuff out. And, obviously the content came, but we didn't at any point sit down and be like, oh, let's actually create a business around this and like have this become the main thing that we do. We just kind of always looked at it as, oh, at best it's going to be like a side hustle, and I think that type of expectation allowed us to let go of all of these things we were holding on to that at the time was limiting our ability to put stuff out into the world, or otherwise even offer anything for people to buy, because we didn't look at it as, oh, this has to work, otherwise we're screwed and we're going to be on the streets or whatever. It was more like, hey, let's do what we want to do. Let's help people the way we want to help them. Not worried about how much we're going to charge or like all of these like economic factors, because we kind of already had our jobs. And over time, it just allowed us to pour a lot of time and energy into the content without an expectation of return. And I think that's huge. Is a lot of people that are trying to get into the entrepreneurial space have this expectation of return based on input. And for us, we just didn't have that point to grapple with because we just let go of it.
Yeah, I it's interesting to me because you guys have this dynamic of a business now that's so focused in. And usually when people create a business, it's okay, this is, we know how we're expecting to do X, Y, or Z. We know exactly what we want to offer to people. We know exactly what the price is we're looking at. This is going to be the return on us spending $5,000 here. And with you guys, it was kind of like you said in the beginning, you just fell into it. You just kind of fell into this, which I think in some scenarios works out for the best. Clearly for you guys, it has. And in other scenarios, I think people, and maybe this comes a part of having like two different kinds of people come together, but I think it's overwhelming to people when you kind of just slip into it, right? And it's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where I'm going. So how did you guys figure out that part of the process and controlling, okay, we see that this has potential. Now we're going to take it from A to F. How did that happen?
I mean, I remember times where pretty much we would do everything together in the beginning, like to the point of we would take sales calls together, which was ridiculous, like looking back at it, because we had all of this like knowledge again, through the experience of growing up and being around our dad, entrepreneur, all that, but we never really applied anything. So we were still kind of shooting from the hip a lot of the times, and trying to figure out what he's good at, what I'm good at, and learning this entire lexicon of the business world. Like, I didn't know what white label meant. I didn't know what ROAS was. Like, these terms in a way meant nothing to me. And to your point, having a very calculated, predefined path of where in direction for a business that you haven't even started yet is probably the best way to give yourself the chance of success. I would say for most people that's probably the best thing to do. But at the same respect, I kind of believe in these more esoteric, kind of woo-woo stuff, if you will, where I think the energy that you put out that you can't necessarily feel or see, right? It's not tangible, but you're putting out this energy, and kind of like a boomerang, right? Where it can and will come back to you in ways that you can't necessarily think about how it's going to happen prior to it happening. So we didn't go into it, like I said, with any expectation or anything like that. We just wanted to help people understand something that we really cared about. And those closest to us were telling us, hey, you've helped me do this, this, and that. You should try and help more people. And that was the only thing that we wanted to do. And, it was very overwhelming when we woke up to hundreds of messages from random strangers saying, like, hey, help me with this. And all of a sudden we're like, well,
it was kind of like our dad's been a huge influential part in our lives, and he always would talk about, like, the tip of the iceberg. Like, you look at someone, you're like, oh, they have success, but they're lucky, or it's because of they got this thing. And so he would always define luck as when opportunity meets preparation, and that together gives that lucky perception. So it's like, you could say, like, oh, we got lucky with that 3 million view video. I would agree. We probably did get lucky with that video, right? But that created an opportunity. The opportunity was we created a problem, and people responded with, hey, this is a problem. And so the opportunity was people reaching out to us because they saw us as a trusting, group of people that had maybe a different opinion on how to address something. That it was like, we could have easily been like, yeah, we're not going to do this, or, hey, well, this is now we got to have a business and contracts and fulfillment and, like, do all this stuff that was, again, completely brand new to us, and just not done that. And it's like, we probably wouldn't be here today, because at the end of the day, like, you can't have a business if you don't make money. Even if you're like, you could do the content, but now it's just, hey, you're just a content person, but you're not like a business, and just things are ran different.
You're not generating the revenue.
Yeah. So it's like, who's to know that opportunity would have ever came again, And so that's
fair point.
That's kind of how we've taken a lot of, everything that we do is, like, as opportunities come up, we just go, okay, hey, we might not know everything, but do we know the first step? Well, we know the first step because it's the same first step as the prior things of, okay, well, we got to have a contract. We got to have some idea of, like, what the outcome is for that person. We kind of have, we have some employees. Okay, we'll figure out, like, what things are important, or, like, what the price needs to be. So we have some baselines, and there's a bunch of new stuff that we just learn along the way. But we're confident in going, okay, well, the worst thing that happens is, we just have to give refunds. We go, hey, unable to do this, or, hey, this didn't work out the same way, or, hey, we need to film a different type of video because that video didn't do as well.
Yeah.
But it's just being okay with the potential, oh, this didn't work, which is tough. That's a tough thing for all of us. We don't like to be like, oh, that didn't work the way that I hoped it did.
And I think what you just said is probably one of the most important things that I've learned thus far in my life, is being able to understand that it didn't work the way you expected it to work, and you're okay with moving on from that and figuring out a different way to try and achieve the same goal. Most people get stuck on, it didn't work. Well, it didn't work, so that means the next thing's not going to work. No, it just means that didn't work in itself. Let's change it. Let's morph it. Let's fix it. Let's correct it. Let's try a type A. Let's try a type B, right? So you have these different nuances and ways of looking at solving problems that obviously indicate you guys are successful business owners, and that now you can fully understand and wrap your heads around the fact of, okay, if something doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. We're going to figure out another way. Fast forward to this point in time, what are the service offerings that you guys have available for consumers?
And just before the thought escapes me, you mentioned problems. For those that don't know, the light bulb, right, created by Thomas Edison, he failed, quote unquote, 1,000 times prior to actually creating the light bulb. And the thing that he was, quoted as responding to people's questions of like, oh, like what was it like going through that process? And, my God, you failed so many times. And he would correct them and he'd say something along the lines of, oh, I never failed. He's like, I just figured out 1,000 ways how to not make a light bulb. Yeah. And it was the 1,000th and first that had it, that actually worked. So I think our perspective throughout the entire time we've been in business has not been, oh, we've failed at doing X, Y, or Z. It was always, hey, we tried this and we figured out not to do that, or a lot of those lessons I think have carried forward into how we are the way we are now. Is the failures have actually been the largest lessons we've been able to gather in this experience.
Yeah, and as cliche as it sounds, it rings true time and time and time again. And this podcast is now over 4 years old. Something I've consistently talked about for the past 4 years is failing in order to succeed. And in fact, before, I think in season 2 and season 1, a question I was always ask a guest when we would do a lot more structured Q&A type interviews in the long form was, what is one time you failed and how did you get past that failure? Because I think a lot of people, and when I say a lot of people, I mean the average person that's out there watching or listening, whatever socioeconomic class you are, as long as you're not in the upper, right, you're an average person, don't understand how many times people truly fail and why is because, and this has slightly changed now that social media has come out and you have all these platforms and people building a personality and a brand for themselves, but people were so scared to talk about failure. It was like this topic that nobody wanted to touch. No one wanted to discuss it. Why? Because it was embarrassing. They didn't want to be known as someone that failed. They didn't want to be known as somebody that wasn't not able to accomplish what they said they were. But now I think we're starting to see a shift of, okay, failure is actually essential because if you don't fail, then how are you learning? If you don't fail, then how are you going to know what's up? If you don't go down to the bottom, then there's no movement to go up. And so I think it's really important that you point that out and pull that out because, again, as cliche as it sounds, failure is so vital for success, in my opinion, because you're able to learn. And I think what makes or breaks a person in a business is if they fail, can they get back up and can they keep going? Or is this something that's going to taunt them and they're going to be like, okay, great. Like, I'm done with this, right? Like, shake my hands, I'm all set,
Yeah, and that's where, one life quote that I keep in my head is that we will never rise above the opinions of ourselves. And oftentimes with failure, like you said, when we say that word, we go, well, if I fail at something, that means I'm not somebody who can do that thing, or I'm not as smart as I need to be. I'm not as strong. I'm not as whatever. And it can kind of be this negative feedback loop that you give yourself. And now all of a sudden your opinion of self is lower than it actually could be. Yeah. If instead of looking at it as being a failure, to your point of flipping it and saying, oh, well, this is actually something I can really learn from. And that's been a commonality with any successful person. People that are way more successful than us have said something along those same lines of how they view these challenges or these roadblocks, and, being the person to say, oh, this obstacle in front of me or the thing that I tripped over is actually the exact thing that I need to work on or I need to get past, rather than trying to avoid it altogether. And to your point about like what we do now, I mean, we help small business owners get access to funding. We help individuals repair their credit, and improve their individual situation. And we run a coaching membership as well, where we get to help people through, resources that we've created, video courses, PDFs, guides, things like that they can go through on their own, as well as coaching calls that we run, and we get to interact and teach topics, on a week-to-week basis. But the way that we run our business now is only because of how many times we messed up in the pursuit of it. Yeah. Like when we first got dropped with all those people that needed help with their credit, I mean, we were just two guys. Like we couldn't help hundreds of people, right? So we had to figure out how to actually service that many people. Like we knew how to do it for one or two people, but dozens and hundreds, like no, we didn't have the ability to handle that level of scale. So we actually had to, figure out, okay, well, sales is kind of easy because we have all these people wanting to, pay us money. But fulfillment, okay, let's start working on fulfillment. Like, how do we get the end thing all these people want to them individually? And, over the first year that we were doing that, it was great. It was just money's coming in the door, people are getting results, awesome. But we didn't at the time have the ability to look towards the future. And what was happening is we were basically just bringing on way more people than we could actually fulfill, because we were just blindly trusting things that we were being told by, the people that we were working with for, oh yeah, no, it's fine. Just keep bringing on more people. Like we can help them. We can help them. But one of the biggest things that we messed up on initially was not understanding not only the input of people, but the output. Like, can we not only sell something, but can we also deliver it at this level of scale? And it kind of brought us to a juncture where we had to like shut down that operation for a little while because we couldn't bring on more clients. Right. And then that was a struggle because we're like, well, now we're not making money from this area, and we have to pay our employees. We have to pay the costs, the hard costs of fulfilling that. But we need to get people out the door before we can bring more people in. Yeah. And it was this great learning experience of understanding not just what's happening today, but what is the average time a client's with us? How long can we future pace and say, well, if we've got these many employees that can handle this much, how many clients can we realistically bring on this month and then the rest of this year? And then when is the estimated time all these people are going to leave, so that way the system doesn't get overloaded? But that's a lesson that I'm sure we were told at some point in the very beginning, like, hey, just so you guys know, like, be mindful of all these things. But, we're people, right? We're just, that's not going to happen to us, or, oh, we'll be fine. But it wasn't until we were just left in this situation of like, oh shit, we need to figure this out now. Like, we messed up. We need to take some time, take a step back, right? Fix the problem that we created, and then also now know how to avoid it in the future. Right. So since then, we've rebuilt everything, a handful of times at this point. And, we finally have a system that's not only built for making money today, but also providing the results that we want to for all of our clients in the long term, which is the thing that's really the most important to us.
Let's talk about something that could change the way you handle your money. Imagine a world where your bank account is as fortified as an armored truck. Welcome to the Brinks Armored Account, the last debit card you'll ever need. With at least one monthly deposit of $500 or more, you can say goodbye to monthly fees and hello to money management that pays you back. With the Brinks Armored Account, you get cash back on your purchases, access to over 100,000 ATMs with one free withdrawal per month, and an optional overdraft service that respects your boundaries. But that's not all. Brinks takes security as seriously as you do. Enjoy peace of mind with ID theft protection and purchase assurance, guarding your transactions and new purchases against damage or theft. It's not just an account, it's an armor for your finances. Qualify for early direct deposit, and you can receive your paycheck or government benefits up to 2 days faster. It's your money. Why would you wait? Step into the future of financial confidence with the Brinks Armored account. Visit brinksarmored.com to learn more or connect with Brinks Armored on social media. Brinks Armored account. It's not just safe, it's Brinks safe. So what are those offerings when you say help clients? How do you guys help clients? Run through everything so people can really understand the scale of everything that the Credit Brothers can do for somebody or their business.
Yeah, so I think at the forefront, just the free content, like the free content, we always try to lead with value. I mean, there's someone that just joined our community a few days ago, and literally the first thing he mentioned in the community is like, hey, I've been following the Credit Brothers for 3.5 years. My credit score is a 519. Purely through their free content, I was able to get to an 825. Now I'm ready to like, now I want to pay. I want to see what else I can do. But it's like, he never paid for the service. He never bought any of our products. He never paid for one. Like, he never did any of that. And he was able to do that just through the free content. So that's where we always try to put really as much true, like actionable things, because it's like, hey, you could go through the free, or like, hey, you can make it go faster and you don't have to have it, you can, we can do it, and then you can pay for the service. So as far as the ladder stack per se is on the very, baseline, the free content is always going to be there. It's never going to go away. And, people can go through and search and figure out what's there or not there. And then for the people that want to have a little bit more access to us, it's going to be our community. It's a monthly membership for that. They get pretty much a blanket of stuff. So everything from repairing credit, with software that we have in there, as well as letters and templates, to exactly how to build an 800 credit score, to getting their first approvals, the strategies that we recommend to apply for, to, hey, how you can optimize your credit card spend to get the most points, to, how to structure your business, corporate credit to be able to go, after funding as far as, lines of credit and loans and credit cards, to LLC structure, not from the tax perspective, but more or less on how the banks really look at it, to make sure that is in order, to, maybe even making money from your credit. There's a lot of interesting ways online through arbitrage that you can make money off your credit cards to make full-time income. And then you have, again, like people that maybe want to travel. Like there's a whole other side of the fun areas that are there. So that community kind of provides a over, every single thing in one place. And that's at a lower monthly fee. And then we have, people that are like, hey, I would rather just hop on a call with you. And so we do one-on-one mentorship with another set of clients that are just, hey, they want to work with us one-on-one. They maybe want the guidance where we give them a call a month. We hop on a call, we build out a plan, and then we help them keep accountable, as well as, hey, if they ever run into issues for a handful of months, then we're there where they don't have to be in a community full of hundreds. It's like they get that more one-on-one. And then we have our actual service side. So people that maybe need help, repairing their credit, even though the software works and the letters work, all that stuff, they just don't want to deal with it. They want us to handle it, and they want to be as hands-off as possible. Okay, like we're there for them. And then the same thing on the funding side. It's like, hey, we'll provide all the information for you to do it. But if you want that access where it's like, hey, you're trying to get maybe, specific things, or your situation is a little bit different, or you're just busy and you don't want to deal with trying to figure it out, then again, we'll be on that side as well and just do the consulting. So we really just try to meet people where they're at and figure out what makes the most sense. Like we, don't try to push them into one thing or another. It's just, hey, if we're talking to, a family, a dad and their family, they're like, hey, I want to take my kids at Disney World. And it's like, okay, well, hey, maybe it makes more sense to just join the community, hop on a couple coaching calls, go through our content and figure out how to put a trip together. Whereas if we're talking with, a business owner, or even just someone that they have money and they're like, hey, can you like teach my wife how to, put together trips, because I travel all the time and I'd like to save some money, but I don't really have time to like hop on a coaching call or, go through hours worth of content. I don't want to do that. Can I just pay you guys to, train someone? Then that would be another area. So again, it's a little of, hey, we have structured things that people can go buy and find, purchase. And then we have, hey, yeah, we can help you do that. Like, let's figure something out.
So the arbitrage, how does that work? Like you said, someone can make a full-time income off of credit card arbitrage. What does that even mean?
Yeah. So, there's a couple areas. This was in the early days of when I started learning like the credit card system. When I was working in construction, I was only making maybe $2,000 a month. Granted, it was a family business. I was probably, taking it a little bit more for, the goal that I would make more money. I knew the financials, so I was okay, not making a ton of money and probably being underpaid. So,
We'll send this clip to your dad.
Yeah. So, I was like, at the end of the day, I was like living with other people, and I was like, man, I was like living in a closet essentially because I couldn't afford to like pay my portion of the rent and all my other bills. And so I was like, what can I do to make more money? And I was like, I have these credit cards. There's got to be something I can use with these credit cards. And so I started to figure out there's this arbitrage, which is basically ways to spend money on your credit card and earn the rewards. And when you're able to do it at scale, it's a multiplier. So one of the more most well-known methods, which doesn't really work anymore as good as it was you could use a credit card to buy a gift card and then use that gift card to go to like Walmart, the grocery store, the post office. And a gift card is essentially a debit card. It has a number on there, it has like a PIN. And so you're exchanging cash for cash. A money order is a check. You take that check and deposit it into your bank account. Then you take the money in your bank account and you pay off your credit card. So you're just, essentially have a full loop that you're doing. And if you're doing that at a multiplier, then you're able to make, 1 or 2 or 3% back on that. And so that was like level 1. Level 2 was you could go to the store and you could buy an item on a credit card and then return that item back to a debit card a few days later. Now you bought it, you got the multiplier on the credit card, you return the product, so it's no cost to you. The money goes back to a debit card, and then again, you complete the loop. So it's all about completing the loop. That was another way. And then
Is that way still possible?
That way is still very possible. A lot of people make, consider, at least 1,000, 2,000 a month. If you're, really kind of get into it. I mean, we have some people in our community that are doing $3,000 to $5,000, $7,000 a month.
Really?
Just doing, just
turning it to a debit card.
Yep. So there's one of the most infamous, easiest ways to do this. It doesn't work as well anymore just because I'm sure they've probably caught on. But Costco, specifically with Costco doesn't accept MasterCard online. Or they don't accept MasterCard in store. So you have to use a Visa card. So you could buy anything off Costco.com, have it shipped to your house with a MasterCard-based credit card, have it shipped to your house, and go into the store to return it. But because they don't accept MasterCard in the store, it's called a forced return. They have to return the card back to a different card because their systems wouldn't allow it. Meaning you could just continually buy $1,000, like thousands of dollars worth of stuff, and you're getting a 2 or 3x, 2 or 3% multiplier on that. So it might be like, hey, you buy $5,000 worth of stuff on a 3 or 4% cashback card, you're getting $150 net. Item comes to you, you just go to the store, you return it. Like, oh, well, hey, we can't return it to that card. Do you have another card we can return it to? You give them a debit card. Again, you get that money. So that method works at a ton of stores. It doesn't quite work that exact same way with Costco, but like Sam's Club and jewelry stores and just almost any retail store nowadays, it almost works at. And so that is, that way is good, and you can do it. But it's effort. Like you still have to go to the store and you have to like buy the items, and sometimes it doesn't. A lot of time involved. But when I was making no money, and then I was like, oh man, I was making like $2,000 extra. I was double my income doing just this. I was like, it was worth it. But then I was like, I started to get a little bit busier, and I was like, well, what else can I do? And that's where the online arbitrage came into place, because I was like, I don't have to leave my house. It's way easier because you're just clicking buttons. And you're able to really scale it a lot faster and easier just based off your credit limits. And so essentially what that is Amazon has, they have locks on how many products you can buy. So for example, you want to go buy iPads. Well, you might only be able to buy 3 iPads for your account. And so when the resale market, they're trying to control market price. And if they own like 70% of all the coins or watches, like if you own that large supply, you can kind of control the market a little bit. So there are companies that will essentially pay, a bounty per se to have thousands, tens of thousands of people go buy the newest, latest gadget or thing, and then they sell these overseas. And so it's all based on percentages. But if you say have a 5% cashback credit card with Amazon, and you're using that 5% cashback card, and the company is paying you another percent or 2% on that, and you can stack that with what we call a shopping portal, which will give you another 1 to 2%. It's like you could be netting 8%, 9% on an order, and we were able to go buy, you have 10 accounts and you're able to buy 30 iPads, and each one of those iPads is $500. It's like you could go drop 15 grand on those products. You're netting 5-6%. You're gonna take a nice like $600-700 profit off that. And the best part about it is everything was drop shipped. Everything was pre-sold, so you never had to worry about buying the product, getting shipped to your house, and then have to like go post it on eBay and sell it, because these companies would post on their website and be like, hey, we're doing we're looking for X amount of items. Like if you want to commit, you just like make an account, you say like, yeah, I think I can buy this amount, and then they give you an address, a user ID, and everything's drop shipped to them. They receive it, they scan it in, and then you get a check in like a few weeks, and then again, that's how you complete the loop.
I mean, it seems, let me say this, it seems so straightforward when you say it, but in practice, I feel like it's so complex and complicated to learn it. And obviously, that's what your guys' community does, is teach you the ability to go and do these things on your own. But for the average person, how long is the learning curve to be able to go and do something like that? To educate themselves on the nuances that's part of that process, to then be like, okay, I'm going to try this on my own now.
Yeah, so the very, very basic aspect is actually pretty easy. For example, right? You can go to a company like Buy For Me. Buy For Me is one of the largest of these arbitrage retailers. They kind of, if in a way, if you're Googling, it's called buyer groups. And you can just go make an account, and you can, as long as you have an Amazon account, like it doesn't even be anything special, you're good to go. It's free to make the account, go through their terms and get like read all their facts, make sure you have an understanding. And then at that point, it's like they say, hey, we're going to buy, an Amazon or a Dot, or an Alexa.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. The price that they say they're paying is $199. You click on the link. The price that Amazon says it's at right now is $199. They say they want black. Okay, you make sure black is in stock. You buy one of them and you ship it off to them. And within a few days, whenever it gets delivered, you'll get a notification that they scanned it in, and then the money will go into your account, and then you can click withdraw, and then they'll be like, oh, do you want check? How do you want it? And so that process is quick. It's nothing crazy. It does get a lot more complex when you're trying to go, for instance, the person in our community, his name's Alex. He's doing $400,000 or $500,000 a year. This is his full-time income. That's when it gets significantly more advanced.
Yeah.
Because now you need like hundreds of accounts, and you need employees to actually be able to go make those buys. And obviously you need to scale your credit to even have the opportunity to be able to buy that amount at that scale. So that's a little bit more of a, over the top aspect of just how possible it is. But again, it gives the ability where, could you make an extra $100 or $200 2 or 3 times a year just to help pay for, I don't know, Christmas gifts or groceries, or just to have a little side cash? Oh, 100%.
That's wild. Go ahead.
And the barrier to entry to a low level of scale is pretty straightforward. Like I would help my friends start doing this. And again, as long as you're not trying to operate hundreds of accounts and all that, like it is pretty simple, and something that as long as someone's got a credit card, then they can do this and actually get the reward very quickly. So to Chris's point, if you want to make a couple $100 a month, like you're likely already set up to do that as long as you've got a credit card. If you want to make a couple thousand or 5,000 or whatever, like now we're talking advanced. It's at scale. There's a lot more nuance to it. But that's what's nice about these, is that it's simple to understand. It's rather easy to go out and do it. And you don't need to wait like months or years for a reward, because it's the life cycle of this is pretty short,
More and more people are starting to become concerned about their plastic waste. That's why having a fun, refillable water bottle has become such a popular trend. So, let me introduce you to our official beverage sponsor of the Best podcast, Path, a sleek and completely recyclable aluminum water bottle that is also BPA free and refillable. Refilling your Path bottle not only reduces plastic waste, but also contributes to becoming carbon positive after only 4+ refills. Since 2015, Path has been on a mission to end single use plastic. It's not about drastic changes, it's about simple lifestyle switches. By educating people and encouraging them to hashtag refill it, Path shows that every refill counts in the fight against plastic waste. It's a small step that can make a huge difference. You can find Path in over 55,000 retail stores worldwide, including stores like Whole Foods, Target, CVS, Sprouts, and many more. Path is also present in airports, gyms, schools, and has extended its reach to travel, fitness, national parks, hospitality, and healthcare sectors. To learn more, visit drinkpath.com or follow them on Instagram at Pathwater. Now, let's jump back into the episode. And I'd like to shift the conversation to focus on credit scores and then after that I want to go to travel hacking a little bit, but talking about credit scores, can you guys give some examples of credit scores and credit improvements that you have seen in your community using the services that you guys offer? And if you could, please go in depth on what you're doing to actually boost that score from a 300 to a 750.
So whenever we are thinking about working with a client, right, we always want to look at the report and identify two major areas: what needs to be removed and what needs to be added. So, for example, we had one client that came in, and he's also a part of the community. I forget what his first name is for whatever reason right now, but in any event, his main thing is he wanted to buy a house. And he comes in and he actually had a bankruptcy on his credit report. And he goes, guys, like, I need help. Like, I went bankrupt several years ago. Like, I'm good now financially, but now I've got all this stuff on my credit. My score's low. I can't get approved for what I want. Like, I need help. So we first focused on, okay, well, what do we need to help remove from his credit report? Like, the bankruptcy was included. There was other negative accounts, like defaulted stuff, collections. And the process is to make it as simple as I can with respect to disputing items, is that there are rules and laws that govern what can be on a credit report. And what a lot of people confuse is they think if it happened, like in reality, if the thing happened, then it's supposed to be on my credit report. Meaning if you filed bankruptcy, well, then it should be on your report until it naturally falls off. But the nuance to that is the items that are on your credit report need to be valid and verifiable. So if it's valid because it actually happened, meaning it wasn't fraud, it wasn't identity theft, like it actually was you, okay, well, so it's a valid thing that did happen. But verifiable, like, what does that mean? What does that mean? So basically, credit bureaus are the ones that house all the information. The way they get the information are from what are called data furnishers. And these furnishers of data have guidelines, like, for example, the FCRA, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, that basically says, hey, if you've got data that's going to go on a credit report, it has to meet all of these requirements with respect to verifying that it actually is tied to the person that you're trying to put it on to their report, and that person has all of these little biomarkers like their name, their middle initial, their social security number, their date of birth, their addresses, like all the personal identifiers that you have as how I can identify you as Maverick, right? That all actually is housed essentially on a credit report. And unless all of those things to a very minute level are ticked as far as a checklist, unless that happens, an item's not technically supposed to be on your report by law. It's not to say that it didn't happen. It's not to say that, you still don't owe money to that debt collector or whatever. Right. It's just saying, hey, by the rules and laws that govern this, and I encourage people to understand what CFPB is, what FCRA is, and what FDCPA, like these acronyms that basically are just laws and codes. It's like when you build something, it's got codes of how the ceiling's got to be this height and the electrical outlet's got to be over here. It's the same thing with a credit report. So all that we're doing is we're basically sending out letters or disputes to credit bureaus, sometimes to these data furnishers, which are what are known as original creditors, meaning if you got a credit card from Capital One's the original creditor, right? And they furnish data by sending all the information related to that account to the credit bureaus. The credit bureaus take that information and then they put it on your credit report. So what we're looking to do is basically force their hand to have to prove that they are following all of these things as it relates to these laws. And as you could imagine, huge companies, tons and tons of customers, lots of data, very, very strict guidelines, lots of mistakes. And if you look hard enough, you can find it. And all you need to do is basically send out some disputes relative to the information you're challenging, letting them prove it or not. And even if they try and prove it, basically, comparing it to how it should actually be and saying, oh, actually, you're missing this and well, you're missing that. And, that's not necessarily the case or whatever argument you can come up with based on what they give you. And then it kind of becomes this like back and forth where you send a letter, they send something back, you review it, you send another thing back to them. And eventually, you catch them, and then legally they need to actually remove it from your credit report. So that process is, as you can imagine, lengthy. Like that takes months. Right. This is not oh, hey, you want help fixing your credit? Hey, we'll get this knocked out in a week. So this.
It's probably one of a lot of people, especially in I would say the repair space, have claims like, 30 days, 5 days. And it's interesting because it's impossible to know how long it's going to take. Like it really is. It could be never. It could never come off your report.
Oh, if they're very dialed in,
or 7. It could come off in 7 years if it's a normal account, Chapter 7, up to 10. So when I say never, you just might have to simply wait. It could take 30 days, or it could take 2 years. But the timetable is, again, how much of a fight that it's going to be. And when I say a fight, this goes into the aspect of Experian. And Experian, one of the largest credit bureaus in the country. In fact, we just looked this up last night, but they are doing $13 million a day in revenue. A day in revenue. Do they really care about making sure that your dispute is actually being looked at? No, and they're actually being CFPB, which is Consumer Finance Bureau of Protections. They're a government agency that helps protect consumers against big banks and these big credit bureaus. It's kind of like a mediator per se. They actually are going after Experian right now because Experian has admitted that they don't look at almost half of the disputes that people send in. So people are sending disputes. They're not even looking, but they're sending you a letter back as saying like, we verified your account, or like you're getting a notification of like, we verified it. And it's like, did you? Like, how do you even know? Like, how do you even know, right? And so that obviously provides challenges, even from a company standpoint, is like, it doesn't matter if you're sending it, if we're sending it, like that risk is there. And so that's where it's like, if you're sending 6 months, 6 months in, but realistically they only looked once, but you think they looked 6, that's obviously where it could legitimately take more time. And then maybe they give you one response and you go, oh, that response, they told me it's verified, but you never ask, well, hey, how did you verify? What was the method of verification? Can you give me the representative's name that verified? Like, if you don't ask for these other things, then maybe you go, oh man, it's just not going to work. So it is kind of a chess match, but at the same time, there is a level of unknown that is expected with it. And unfortunately, a lot of people that have really bad things on the report, and with the coupling of the marketing and the perception of how a lot of other people paint this removal process, that either if they're getting these removals in a ridiculously fast time frame, they're probably doing something that's above or below the grade line per se, versus above the line. But on top of that, again, it's just really hard to actually know what that time frame is. So one of the things specifically, in the community that we've had a lot of success with is people that remove late payments. So you get a 30-day late payment and it's like, oh man, I think I just dropped my score like 100 points, right? Brutal. And the thing is, with the credit system, they are relentless. Like, you could have legitimately 30 years, perfect everything, payments, built rapport, everything. One, oops, my payment bounced, went to a different account. Oops, that one time they'll just slaughter you, and then you go from an 800 to a 680 like pretty much overnight, and you just can't recover. So it's really not forgiving at all. And so one of the aspects inside of our community that we teach people is doing something called a goodwill. Now, typically when you look up like goodwills, they usually don't work, and it's because people generally want to find a template. They want to find like, which makes sense, right? Like, I'm not an expert. I don't want to be an expert. Just tell me exactly what to do and exactly where to send it. But the problem is, again, these credit bureaus are billion-dollar industries, and they're getting probably hundreds of thousands of disputes. If they see a letter that looks exactly the same as 20,000, they're going to put it in a template bracket. The AI is going to pick up on it, and they're just going to dump it every single time. They're not even going to look at it. And so what we like to do, which seems to work really well, is we actually like to go to a website called ceomail.com. You look up the CEO. So you can type in like Chase, or you can type in, Capital One, and it'll actually show you the CEO of the company, their first name, last name, the address, and their email. Wow. And so now, right, when you realize the aspect that you might be like, oh, CEO of Capital One or Discover, they're never going to look at it. Believe it or not, they're far more likely to look at their mail than the customer service team of 10,000 people that don't care. And so we like to find the CEO and then try to find like one or two other people that is on the executive team. So literally go to like CapitalOne.com or Chase.com or Discover.com and look at the exec team and see if we can find someone that's maybe like head of like public relations, or maybe someone on the media team. Just find like 2 or 3 people. And then again, using legitimately, you can use ChatGPT to help make it custom, but the more personal you can make it, the better, because again, it's going to a person. You want it to seem kind of like, realistic, which is helpful. But literally writing a letter to the CEO and be like, hey, John, like, hey, I know you're probably never going to see this letter. I recently, I've had perfect credit and I've been building it for years. And, I love working with Capital One and everything, but like, man, I was moving and like my bank tripped up a payment and I got this late payment on my report. It completely tanked. Like, understood that it was my mistake and not you guys, but if there's any way that we can do like a good faith reversal or like remove this late payment, like it would mean a whole lot to me, and I would be super appreciative. Like, just something like that. And then you take that letter and you literally write on the letter, right, to the CEO's name, and on the letter, just like you would an email, you write CC, and then you CC the names of the other people that you're sending the letter. You certified mail the letter to all 3 of those people, and that way the CEO knows that John in HR or John in public relations also got the letter, and John knows that Mary in head of customer service also got the letter, and so they know that there's multiple people that got the letter. And at that point, when you think from the employee's perspective, if they're able to help someone out, how does that look on the company and how does that look on themselves, right? And so it looks great that they are able to help this person out by doing something nice for them, which also helps them in their career. So they're more motivated, potentially more motivated to actually help it out if it's obviously a genuine letter.
How often are you doing something like that?
That's
are your community members doing something like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's if people only have a single 30-day late or a 30 and a 60, like just 1 or 2 late payments, that's the first step I tell every single person to do. Because again, as soon as you start disputing, now you're in a fight. Yeah. You're going to be in a fight, and you're probably going to be in a fight for a little bit. So it's like, instead of fighting, let's just try to resolve this from, the top down and pretty much skip that entire process right away.
Yeah. Why do you guys think the credit industry is so shady? Like the credit repair side of the world, the credit consulting side of the world. As you guys know, and I'll say it again for the audience, when I bring on guests to the show, they are a representation of us as a brand as much as you guys are a representation, excuse me, as much as I'm a representation of you by associating yourself with our brand. But in the credit world, it seems like everybody's shady. Someone opens up a shop, it's closed down in the next year or so, horrible reviews. It just seems like a world that scam people attract to. Why do you think that is? And on the flip side of that, what have you guys done to be the difference makers in the world of credit? For me, someone that was going and looking for the best of the best in the credit world, to find you guys and pass our due diligence checklist.
You know, one thing that I recall our dad teaching us at a young age, and I know we've talked about him a lot, shout out dad, is he had this thing about, well, if you don't know why something is the way that it is in the world, follow the money. And to your point, why do I think this industry is so shady? Well, I think it starts with, say, these credit bureaus, right? They're a publicly traded company. You can buy stock in a credit bureau. They're not government agencies. They're not a part of the government at all.
So they are publicly traded.
So, okay, well, if they're publicly traded, then that means they've got stockholders and they've got, people that have equity in that company that are like, hey, I want you guys to make money. How do they make money? Well, they make money by having things on your credit report.
Yeah.
Like literally that is how they make money, is having stuff to put on credit reports. So if you've got a bunch of stuff that shouldn't be on there, well, guess what? They're making more money by having it on there than not. So it's not in their favor to actually remove things that should be removed because it's less money for them. So I think it really starts at the top with things like that, where the companies that are supposed to be, the good guys are nothing of the sort. And I think that's translated into, the industry, obviously, that we operate in. And I remember somebody asked me one time, they were like, hey, if I could, give a service or I could give a product to you and you've got 3 options and you can pick 2 of them. You can get it fast and cheap. You can get it good and fast, or you can get it cheap and good. He's like, but you can't get it fast, cheap, and good. He's like, pick 2 of them, however you want to slice it.
Mm-hmm.
And what that leads to is, well, if you want to give somebody a good service and, you want to do it fast, well, it's not going to be cheap, and okay, well, if you want to offer something that a lot of people can buy and you want it to be a good deliverable, well, it's not going to be fast.
Right.
It's, and then you start to play around with these concepts, and what ends up happening oftentimes is just like anybody, right? We were talking about this last night at dinner, is when you don't have money, you just want to get money. You don't care how you get it. So you end up marketing or presenting something that is just not true, because in this world of credit repair, it kind of follows the same guidelines of to deliver something that's really fast, that's really good, and also inexpensive, like legitimately does not exist. But that's how a lot of people position it, because that's obviously going to entice somebody to want to buy it.
Yep.
But they're not thinking far enough ahead, or maybe that individual is in a position in life where they just don't care. They would rather, over promise and under deliver than under promise and over deliver, because they're just trying to survive and do what they need to do as an individual. And unfortunately, in this particular industry, I think looking at the top, from the credit bureaus themselves all the way to the people that are trying to help consumers fix their credit, they kind of operate in this gray area where they're not being fully transparent with what they're doing or what the result could actually be, or all of these things that we're just being told as the consumer that's buying the thing, like, oh, I'm just going to get my credit fixed in 7 days. Like, awesome.
Yeah.
But there are so many just really, outright illegal ways to get credit repair done. Like, if you just want to lie about everything, then you can get really fast credit repair. But at the end of the day, you're in my opinion, you're compromising your moral compass.
And when you say lie, like, can you give an example of what that would even entail?
Oh, I've got you. And Chris found this one out. If you want to explain this one.
Yeah. So the new way to repair your credit in the credit repair world is called a 7-day TransUnion sweep. It's super heavily marketed, and people are making an ungodly, like, hundreds of thousands of dollars per month because of people that buy into this, like, get rich quick scheme, essentially what it is. But what people are doing, again, it's so messed up. But what people are doing is there is a Consumer Finance Bureau protection. Again, they're to protect consumers. So again, if you have identity theft, you shouldn't be responsible for that. Or if you were, in war, right? If you were in the military and something happened to your credit, like you shouldn't be responsible for that. And so things like child trafficking, that is a global issue. And there are a lot of children and people that are impacted by that. And unfortunately, part of that is maybe they take advantage of your social security number. They run up a bunch of credit, right? They take advantage of you. You shouldn't be responsible for that. And so the Consumer Finance Bureau Protection put out a law a couple of years ago, like I think it was like 1 or 2 years ago, that basically said, hey, if you were part of a human trafficking, ring, and anything happened to your credit profile, submit this form and we will wipe everything off your credit profile, guaranteed in like 5 days or less. What people started doing is they go, oh, there's no verification checks for any of this. And so people are just filling out the form saying that they're part of this ring and getting literally everything, like multiple hundreds of points, bankrupt, like you name it, completely wiped off their credit report illegitimately, like 7 days or less. But you're falsifying a document saying that you're part of a human trafficking ring. And
you're getting a signed affidavit.
And you have to sign affidavit
by a notary.
Stuff and notary. Like you're putting a lot of stuff in there and people are doing it. And again, hopefully it doesn't backfire on people if they start doing investigations to see if this was legitimate. But again, like how do you, as a legitimate company, like someone's going like, hey, I can show you how to wipe your credit in 7 days guaranteed. And this is a guarantee. It's guaranteed 100% going to work. Versus, yeah, you could pay us this money and we don't know how long it's going to take. And we also don't know the outcome and this might not work. Yeah. It's like, so those are, I would say in every industry, no matter what, obviously we're in credit. So we see the good, we see the bad, we see everything in between. And in taxes, there's a lot of, hey, just write everything off and everything's a write-off and just, you could write off your clothes, your jets, your everything. So you're going to, regardless of the
write-off until it's not, baby.
Yeah. I'm sure like in every industry that you're in, you're always going to see like the fucked up side of things per se. But again, that's just it's a tough area because some people some people simply don't know what's going on. Other people are very known to what's going on. And it is an area that goes, well, hey, we could make a lot of money if we just started doing that. But then it's like, how are we making our money? And like, that would break massive amounts of moral compass.
And this new program roll out?
The program itself has been out for like the actual law side has been out over a year, but it's only been in the last like 6 to 9 months that it started picking up really heavily on social media where everyone else was picking it up. We actually when I first started seeing it go viral, we made a post in our community warning people like, hey, do not do this. If you are doing it, understand this is what you are doing. And as sexy as it sounds to do this, and again, I don't have bad credit, so I don't know the pain of what it feels like to have bad credit, but I could only imagine that if I was just, maybe I'd paid 2 companies and I didn't have the results and I tried to do it myself and I still wasn't, and I would just, God, anything, please just take away the pain that I'm dealing with. Oh man, this person said I could guarantee get this wipe. I could go do this. Like, it's just, I try to like warn people in our community, whether or not they did it or not, I don't know, but just going like, hey, this is what's actually happening. This is the meta. You're seeing it promoted super heavily. Just avoid just even thinking about doing this.
That's insane. And have they talked about any consequences for doing this? I mean, obviously you're breaking a federal law. So there's that consequence, but that's crazy.
Well, I mean, I think about the PPP loans back when COVID first started, right? There was a phase where people were just writing whatever they wanted on applications for this loan, and they were just saying, oh, I've got a business with 10 employees, like, give me money. And the government was literally just giving them money they didn't need to pay back. And for a year or two, like, it was just oh, no problem. Hey, we'll just submit this application. We'll get you money. Like businesses were selling this PPP loan service.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll get you free government
with massive commissions too. I mean, again, that was something where like people in our, people that we knew were approaching us. They're like, dude, you guys got an audience. Man, I'm making like 20 grand a week right now. And again, it's like, that's as when money is so easy or appears to be easy, it's like, that's where the traps are. And it's like, it was like, well, how are you guys getting these loans? And it's like, oh yeah,
We've got a connection.
we got a
at the
connection
bank.
that'll just doctor these forms. And I'm like make them up. And they're like, oh yeah. The IRS is paying you like $10,000 in employees. So if you just write that you have 10 employees, they'll just drop 100K and you never have to pay it back. And we're like, yeah, no, it's a hard pass on that. And at the time, like everyone's just
Everybody was doing it.
Everyone's doing it. Everyone's bragging about how much money they're making from it. And again, I don't really think the front end people selling it are ever going to get in trouble for it, because they're just selling it and affiliating to some company.
Which I think is so wrong. I'll say that. Like we obviously, the family's business, my family's business is related to tax. And when the first variation of PPP loans came out, the right idea was there. It was to support businesses that needed to keep the employees on payroll and did not have the money to do so. It was actually positive. It was actually beneficial. But then, like you said, you have these front end people coming in and selling it. And that's where the whole thing goes to shit, because then the business owner, in this case, the consumer, is sold a false promise. Right? They're sold a false promise. Maybe they shouldn't even have gotten the PPP loan. Maybe the PPP loan that they got was too much money, right? And so it was a non-forgivable loan it ended up turning into. And then what happens? Now you're stuck with this loan that you have to sit there and pay back the federal government for. And it's became, to me, those people should be held accountable, so much so that I think you have so much fraud out there that I believe the government really can't even wrap their heads around truly. And I'll say this, and I've thought about this for a long time. I don't think the government is willing to pursue something where it looks like they effed up the rollout of the process, right? Had they had safety nets in place to say, okay, we see the potential of where the fraud could come in. Therefore, we're putting these safety nets to catch the fraudsters, rather than coming out and saying, yeah, we put out a program, $500 million of taxpayer money was fraudulently taken. We're sorry about that. We're going to try. Like, is government ever one to come out and say, like, we're sorry, we made a mistake, we did this the wrong way? No. But I think all these people should be held accountable, and mostly on the front end, right? Because now whose hook is in whose mouth? Well, the hook is in the business owner's mouth. And maybe they didn't even know. Maybe they just got literally a cold call and it was like, oh my God, your business can qualify and you can take this loan out. You saw a lot of that as well with the earned income tax credit. If you guys know about that, the ERC credit. Yeah, that was the one. And I mean, I personally know people that made so much money doing that, where when that took place, I'm having conversations with them like, you need to stop doing this because you are committing and helping commit fraud. Because at the end of the day, ERC was a little bit more complicated, and it was much more nuanced in the second version of who could actually take the money. But needless to say, the people that took a lot of the money probably don't qualify for it when you really look at it in depth. And therefore, again, I go back to like holding the front line of these people accountable is so important. And that's where, like, you guys are in a position. I did see your post about the TransUnion, fraud that's going on. And I think people in your guys' position, same as ours, like, we're subject matter experts, need to vocalize like, this is so wrong. And at least we did our part. That's the way I look at it, right? Like when you lay your head at the pillow at night, like at least we did our part of being a chamber for positive messaging and not an echo chamber. I want to talk about travel hacking because obviously like that's something you guys do as well. And I think for those that have good credit right? They're paying their bills. It's like, all right, this is my time of the episode now. I want to learn how to travel. I want to learn how to go to Japan. I want to learn how you can do what you guys do to travel hack, to travel the world. So whoever wants to take it, I kind of give you the floor to talk about your version of travel hacking, some recommendations, some advice for the audience so they can just learn a little bit, dip a toe in the water.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's got their own definition of travel hacking, right? It could be staying at budget hostels and getting Groupons and, flying Spirit, and like that could be the travel hack is, oh, I'm just spending less money and there I'm good. But the way we define travel hacking is elevating your travel experience and reducing the cost. So how can I fly a better airline, stay at a nicer hotel, and pay less than I would be if I was staying at a mid-tier hotel or flying like a budget airline? And you might go, well, that seems pretty difficult to do. Like both levers moving in the right direction. But that's where credit in its flexibility and in its power really, really shines through, because when you earn travel rewards, there's a lot of unique ways that you can use them that a lot of people don't even know exist. Because one, not all credit cards are created equal. Even a credit card that earns points might not be earning the right points. So a lot of what we focus on when people have good credit and they're like, hey, what credit card should I get? Is we first start by teaching them the points pyramid, which is if you earn transferable credit card points, which come from banks like Chase, Citibank, American Express, Capital One. There's a small subset of banks that offer these transferable points, but if you get credit cards with those banks and you earn transferable points, then those transferable points can move into other loyalty programs like airlines and hotels. That's the flexibility that credit card points really offer, is rather than saying, hey, I have a Delta credit card and I'm only earning Delta miles, so therefore I have to fly Delta. Instead, you earn credit card points, which can turn into Delta, or it could turn into a completely different airline, or it could turn into a hotel, right? So you get a lot more flexibility with those points. And similar to when we were talking about arbitrage methods, earlier, the same arbitrage exists in travel, where a credit card company assigns a value to your points. That's why when you log in, it says, hey, you've got 10,000 points. That's $100. But if you move points out of the bank's system and you move it into the specific loyalty program, like the airline or the hotel, that is where you can find a lot of value to those points, because it might be worth $100 if you book something through Chase, which is effectively just a third-party travel website. It's no different than Expedia or any of the others. But if you pull it out of Chase and you say move it into United, or you move it into British Airways or whatever, the cost to book the flight is going to be vastly different depending on where you book it. So it's looking for those pockets of where can I book this flight or where can I book this hotel that I'm going to get the most value for, and learning where to transfer your points, and again, which credit cards to get. And like, that's all of the game, so to speak, that, we've at this point, have mastered, and, we do this on a regular basis and it's pretty effortless. But if you're just getting into it, it's really about starting with getting the right credit cards that then earn you the right points, and then starting to dip your toe into using those points in a way that most people aren't, which is transferring them out, learning about partner airlines and how, British Airways and American, they're partnered. So if you have British Airway miles, you can book an American Airlines flight and vice versa. Like, understanding that ecosystem takes some time.
Yeah, for sure.
But it really just starts with having good credit and the credit cards that allow you to do this.
So give us some good examples, whether it's personal examples, client examples of travel hacking that has been done.
So, I mean, we've stayed at some of the nicest hotels and resorts around the world. And, in part, it's because Hyatt hotels have the highest consistent value for their points. So if you have Hyatt points and you book a Hyatt hotel, you're typically getting a lot of value for that. So one trip that we did earlier this year that Chris actually put together was, we took like 12 of our closest friends and family members, and we all travel hacked this one resort in Mexico. And what was it? Secrets
Playa Blanca and Playa Mujeres, and then it was coupled with Secrets Moshe, which is in Playa del Carmen.
Okay.
So these are like 5-star, all-inclusive, adults only, luxury, around about $1,000 a night for the hotel.
Yeah, like on average $1,000 a night. And here we are bringing like a dozen people that, we're paying a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
Like we're just leveraging our credit card points by transferring them from Chase into Hyatt and then booking the hotels and then doing some stuff with the flights. So with hotels, it's pretty straightforward. It's like, hey, you want to stay at this hotel? You have to transfer your points into that hotel.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to start with that, because you can get a lot of value very easily just understanding that concept. And I would say that's the basic form of travel hacking. But when it comes to airline bookings, it gets a lot more complicated because you have alliances and partnerships and,
KLM, Sky Miles Alliance, or whatever, Sky Team Alliance. I always hear that when I travel.
Yeah, and it can get pretty complex. So like just recently, I'm going to Japan next week, and ANA, All Nippon Airlines, has one of the nicest first class cabins with respect to flying from the U.S. to Japan. It's like a really, really nice cabin. It's very expensive. It's like $15,000 typically for a one-way ticket, one person, one way. And I was able to book that first class ticket for 85,000 miles, which 85,000 miles is typically only worth $850. So I got, close to 20x the value of these miles. And the way that I did it was just taking advantage of understanding ANA has partners with other airlines. They're partnered with United. They're also partnered with Virgin Atlantic. And because they have these partnerships with these other airlines, if I was to go to ANA's website and try to use ANA miles to book this flight, it might be 200,000 miles or 300,000 miles. And then if I go to United might have that same flight for 150,000 or 200,000 miles. But looking at, say, Virgin Atlantic in this specific example, same flight, same airline, sold 3 different ways, but the way Virgin Atlantic sells it is for a fraction of the cost of those other airlines. And
It's crazy. I mean, I know we talked about it last night too, but it blows my mind. We talked about it on the way home, that there is this ability to travel hack and get these tickets for a fraction of the costs.
It's absolutely insane because, I couldn't imagine a world where I just buy a $15,000 ticket. Like, it's ridiculous to me. Like, it's insane. But to be able to leverage these methods it's not because I know the CEO of Virgin Atlantic or I'm buddies with this like flight attendant. Like, no, this is just...
You sent him a certified mail piece to CC all the executives on the team saying, give me this flight or else. No, but it's crazy.
Yeah, there's I was talking to him last night on this hotel trick that I like to run. And this is great for, again, no credit cards needed, no credit card points needed. This is something I did for a buddy that's going to Vegas in a few weeks for a conference. And Las Vegas can be really challenging sometimes, a travel hack. For one reason or another, it just could be a challenging place. And so a lot of people might be familiar with, I would say, the standard way to book hotels is using websites like Expedia or Hotwire or Priceline. Well, what I found out was with Priceline specifically, there's something called express deals when you go on the website. Now, these express deals are pitched as, hey, this 5-star hotel or this 4-star hotel near where you're trying to go is located and you can get it for 70% off. So instead of $400 a night, maybe it's like, $150 a night. But you don't know the actual hotel. You just know it's claimed to be a 4-star hotel. It's claimed to be a 3.5 or a 5-star. So it's kind of a gamble.
Yeah.
And what the outcome is, you don't really know the outcome until after you pay. Well, there's a Chrome extension called Travel Arrow. Travel Arrow basically takes the blinders off. So you can look at these deals and it'll backwards image search the image that's behind this like blurred, facade and tell you the hotel. So you could basically book, for example, Bellagio was $450 a night. I was able to help my friend get it for $150 a night because I was able to use this Chrome extension to reveal what this 5-star hotel was and be like, oh, the Bellagio is a phenomenal hotel. You should 100% book this. And now you're not booking something blindly. You're actually kind of playing the system a little bit and using this one little trick to save a ridiculous amount of money on a hotel that is nice and really no way to travel hack.
Yeah, I believe the steakhouse in the Bellagio is called Sinatra's, if I'm not mistaken. It's a favorite in Vegas. That's what you're making me think of that. But it's just, to me, I'm not the person that's travel hacking. I'm the person that's booking. I'll even admit I'm person booking full price. Like, I'm just, okay, great, this is what it is. But I think it's a good place to wind things down, wrap up, because I think it gives the anticipation to want to do this kind of stuff, right? You want to learn how to travel hack. You want to learn how to be able to go to Japan in an amazing first class seat for 85,000 points. Like, you want to learn how to do all of these things. So as we wrap up, I have two more questions for you guys. The first is, what is the contact information you want to give out to the audience, so that way how do you want people to interact? Do you follow you, email you, message you? What do you want?
Yeah, so Chris's phone number is 347. Now, you can check us out on all major platforms. Instagram is the preference. That's how you can message us. You can check out our videos, enjoy our free content. If you're interested in joining our community, hundreds of other members have been able to improve their credit, learn how to travel hack, do awesome things. I think it's, freaking awesome, and a lot of people think so too. So you can check that out. It's called the Credit Club. You can look it up, or you can go to our Instagram, and it's in our bio. And ultimately, I would say if you're somebody who is trying to learn about credit, fix their credit, use their credit, anything in between, I mean, we really try and cover as much as humanly possible. And as you can tell throughout this conversation, if we don't know something, like, we tell people.
Yeah.
Like, we've been asked questions in very specific cases, and if we can't help you, like, we're going to let you know. So if you're curious and you're like, well, this is my situation, like, does it make sense to do this or that? Like, just send us a message. Like, we're the ones that look at our inbox,
Yeah. you guys will figure it out. That's what I love about you, right? That's why I think you guys are as transparent and as direct as humanly possible in a space where not a lot of people are. The last question I have for both of you, we'll start with Chris, only because you love to drive. So we'll start with you. It's a little inside joke. Chris, what do you wish you knew when you were in your early 20s?
Just in life, or
life in general?
business? Oh man. What I wish I knew, probably, I would say, definitely on the business side, but probably the aspect that people really don't care about how you look, how you sound, and all the insecurities that I care about myself.
Yeah.
That's
a great one.
That was a big thing in the first 6 months of our TikTok career. I made Josh film 100% of everything, so I was extremely insecure, and I only started doing it because I had no choice. It was like Josh was handling 100% of the business, and I was like, Josh, you got to make another post today. He's like, dude, I need help. So it was just like, I was uncomfortable. I probably won't even watch this recording. Like, I don't like how I sound on camera. I'm very self-conscious with how I look and how I'm presented. And that was a limiting belief that I've had. And to this day, some of our most viral content ever has always came from me.
Well, listen, you did fantastic today. So if you do watch it back, you should be proud of yourself. Seriously.
So I'm actually still in my 20s.
Your early 20s.
So early 20s, right? It's not going too far back, but I kind of mentioned it earlier, but something that, both individually, for my own personal life as well as for the business, something that I've really had to come to terms with is the moment you take away the expectation of return is the moment that you can actually live in the present and actually chill out. In the sense that if I really, really want something and I'm trying to get there, and everything that I'm doing, I'm operating under this expectation of I'm going to get this thing from it, whether it's, I'm having a conversation with somebody, I'm trying to create a connection because that connection is going to lead me here, or there, or, I'm putting money into the stock market to have this type of thing. It's like the less pressure that I've put on myself today actually results in a higher output. Which goes against how our brains really work. And again, it is kind of like a cliche if you think about it when you say, okay, less is more. That's something that, again, our father would talk a ton about, is he's like, hey, keep it simple, stupid, don't try and overcomplicate things, and really just trying to say, hey, if you're going to try and enter into the world of business, or if you're going to try and learn something, you have to be a fool before you become the master. And
Very true.
And ultimately, now I seek failure. I seek the embarrassment of not knowing something or doing something incorrectly, because I know that each time that happens, it's an indicator that I'm actually headed in the right direction, right? As opposed to me heading in the wrong direction, which is kind of how I used to think when I was in my early 20s. Is I had this like insatiable need to be like a perfectionist, right? Engineering background, systems and design is a lot of what I did. And okay, well, the software's got to exactly like this, and this is how my documents need to be organized, and everything was very, orderly. But I've kind of started to get away from a lot of that, and I think it's made both business and personal life like a lot better.
Well, gentlemen, this was fantastic. I hope to have you guys back on. I'm sure regulations will change, things will change in the world of credit. I happen to like you guys. I happen to like Austin. So we'll definitely do this again. So I very much appreciate you guys. And like I said to all the audience out there, you guys truly are the best of the best. The reason why I chose you, why I wanted to have an affiliation with you guys. So continue doing the good work for people that deserve it and people that need it. So thank you guys.
No, I appreciate you having us on and giving us the outlet. And ultimately, like I said, this is what we love to do, man, is just help get a message that we care about, and a lot of other people like to hear it as well, is just teach people something that we think is super valuable. So
awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, everybody.
Peace out.